Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Lubiana. I'm 24, born and raised in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia.
And can you tell us a bit about your family history of winemaking?
Yeah, sure. So it goes quite a few generations back, starting in Italy originally, in the northern part of Italy, the Friuli, Istria area. My great-grandfather, Andrea, had a winery there. Due to World War II, he was displaced and he started up his winery again in Australia, out in the Riverland. And that's where my grandfather, Mario, learnt to make wine as well. And also my father, Steve Lubiana, learnt to make wine there in the Riverland. Yep.
And why did your parents move to Tasmania if they already had a winery in South Australia?
Well, Steve had a strong passion for sparkling and champagne style wines. He ended up doing a vintage over there and really wanted to make these wines, and he wasn't able to make them in the Riverland because of the hot climate. So he packed up and moved to Tasmania in the 1990s. Yeah.
And what got you into wine?
Well, growing up on a vineyard and a winery, and eating lots of interesting foods at a young age and going to restaurants, I just had a strong taste for interesting stuff, and I always liked cooking, but I found cooking, a little bit stressful at times, so I thought I'd try winemaking, and the more I learnt about it, the more I became interested in it. Yeah.
And what do you like to drink and eat?
Wine-wise, I like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. I also like Nebbiolo. I really like Malbec, Nerello Muscalese, Caracante, Pinot Gris, from all parts of the world. It doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's good wine. I really enjoy it. And food-wise, a mixture as well. I quite like Japanese food. Also, Italian, of course. A little bit of French is good. And all sorts of food. Yep.
Is this your full-time job, making wine?
It is not for my own label, but I also work for my father full-time, so this is kind of like my side project, my wines and label, yeah.
And what were your studies?
So I did a Bachelor of Enology and Viticulture at Adelaide University. And after that, I moved back from Adelaide to Tasmania, and it's been 2 years now, so I've been working with my father for 2 years in the cellar and the vineyard.
And what vineyard are you using for your wine?
So this is my parents' second estate that they own. They purchased it in 2016. It's down in the Huon Valley, which is 30 minutes south of Hobart. It's a lot cooler down there, and the vines are already established. So, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about the climate, temperature, rainfall, and the history of the vineyard?
Yeah, sure. So it was previously owned, and it was called Panorama Estate. It was 50% of the plantings were planted back in 1973, and another 50% planted in 1995. So it already had some really well-established vines and has a good aspect. The climate is a lot cooler, so it's a little bit later. So while working for my father in the Huon Valley, I can help make all the wines here, but then also a couple of weeks later go down to the Huon Valley and make my wines down there without it overlapping too much. The rainfall's a bit high down there, so the viticulture is a little bit different, and it's a lot less sunny, so we have to account for that as well.
What soil type is it there?
The soils for the vineyard is pretty consistent, and it sort of has like a dark browny sandy top, loamy topsoil, and then underneath that it's a hard pan of white clay with bits of orange clay, and in some parts cobblestones, riverbed stones, because at some point the Huon River went past it. Yeah.
What varieties and clones are you using?
So down there it's borderline viticulture, so Pinot Noir and Chardonnay really excel. We use quite a large selection of clones, and once the vineyard was purchased in 2016, we went ahead with a lot of grafting to different clones to get a good variation, because it's important for Pinot and Chardonnay to have a large variation of clones and ones that work in the area. Yeah.
Is flowering down the hill a challenge for you?
It is a little bit, yeah, because it is quite affected by the southerly weather of Tasmania, so it can get quite windy and rainy during the flowering of the vines, which will have an effect on your fruit set. And so far, I've been finding most years we've been losing a few flowers or berries to the weather, and that reduces the yields down there for sure.
So what yields do you typically get?
Pretty low yields, I'd say very low yields compared to a lot of other parts of Tasmania. We're starting with some very old vines to start with, some 47-year-old vines that don't put up much out to start with. And then with the poor flowering, you're getting even less. So this site definitely does produce low yields, but the fruit quality is really good, so it's worth it, yeah.
Your father's been biodynamic for a while now. Are you using the same viticulture system?
Yeah, so my father runs a viticulture for the vineyard, and I'm completely with that type of viticulture. Biodynamics is proven to work at the Lubiana vineyards, and it's working down there already, even though we're in the first stages of biodynamics. And it just makes sense to me, the biodiversity and letting the vines fully explore the soil, so the fungus can grow in the soil, and the bacteria and the microbes can all grow together in a harmonious way. And I think that makes better fruit, and yeah, we've seen it work, so we're going to continue to use it.
How were the last three vintages, 18, 19 and 20?
So 18 was my first vintage. That was a pretty good year down in Tasmania, especially the Huon Valley. We had good fruit set, fruit flowering, very even warming up to harvest with the summer climate. And yeah, just the fruit came out pretty good at the end. The yields weren't too low, they weren't too high, and we had no disease pressure, so yeah, very good. 2019 was a bushfire year, so all the fruit got smoked out, so we couldn't pick it to make wine. And 2020 is quite a cool year actually. Very cool during summer and a little bit wet leading up to harvest. So yeah, the wines are a little bit lighter and tighter in 2020, but the concentration is still there, and I think they'll age really well.
Can you tell us a bit about your winemaking style for your reds and whites?
Yeah, so I only do a Pinot and a Chardonnay, and for the Pinot, my style is about structure and balance. I try to pick the grapes when everything is in balance, so in the winery I don't have to touch it, and that seems to work really well. And for the Chardonnay, it's also a bit about balance and less so about the fruit flavour and more about the acidity and the texture of the wine. And that's what I sort of look for in the Chardonnay, and I find that enjoyable to drink. Yeah.
Can you describe the most important steps for you to create your particular wine style?
Yeah. So for the Pinot, the most important steps for me would be the sorting of the grapes before they enter the vat for fermentation. I really am quite anal about making sure all the grapes are perfect, and that's down to the berry. So yeah, I sort all the berries, and if it's a whole bunch, I sort all the whole bunches, just to give the best start to the fermentation process. Other than the sorting, the whole basket pressing is very important. I get really good pressings with the basket press, and that just really lets the wine, I think, develop later in the bottle, because it's starting with really good tannins. and a good use of oak, not too much new oak, not too much old oak, and just getting that balance I think is very important.
So what oak do you use?
For the Pinot, I use all Burgundian Coopers. It's the woods from mainly Tronçais and Vosges forests. On the lighter toast side, I don't like that charry toast. And I find this so far is working quite well with the wines. 2018s didn't have any new oak, as I was just understanding the wine as it developed and getting an idea for what it would like. But this 2020 vintage, I've incorporated some new oak, and it's looking really good so far. And I think it will be really well integrated once the wine is complete. Same for the Chardonnay, except I use more Allier forests for the Chardonnay, and yeah, lighter toasts, and not too much new oak, only 20% typically. Yeah.
You said 2019 was smoked out, so what wines are available at the moment?
So my 2018s, I sort of staggered the release of those, and they're out now. They were released in March, and I'm pretty happy with those for my first wines. And the 2020 is going to be the next vintage, which will be out in a year. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers.